You know that feeling when you pick up a new art supply, excited to create something amazing, only to feel frustrated when things don't turn out as you expected? I've definitely been there with watercolor pencils. In fact, I didn't touch them for years until I decided to teach myself how to master them. That's why today I'm going to share 5 things I wish I knew back then. I'll be demonstrating them through a piece inspired by this magical pixels photo, white butterflies glowing against a dark, mysterious background. Hi, I'm Françoise. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, prepare to be surprised because not only do we focus on improving your watercolor skills on the channel, but we also dive deep into the unknown potential of watercolor pencils. So let's get started. One of the biggest misconceptions I had about watercolor pencils when I started was that it was going to take different supplies or complicated ones to get started. And I think it's usually the case when we do anything we're unfamiliar with. But the truth is, they're actually one of the easiest mediums to work with. You don't need a huge setup, just a few colors, a brush, paper, and a bit of water. Today I'm using pink and blue for vibrancy, indigo for depth, plus a 6B water-soluble graphite pencil for extra contrast. And if I need it, I'll use a white pencil for final highlights. My go-to brands are Faber-Castell Albrecht Dürer and Caran d'Ache Museum Aquarelle. Both are rich, vibrant, and smooth. They're not scratchy or dry like some cheaper pencils. And the best part is that unlike traditional watercolors, you can use these on almost any thick drawing or painting paper. For today's technique, I prefer hot press watercolor paper because I'll use more water than usual and it will let the colors flow and dry better than drawing paper would. Most watercolor paper types will work, and my top choice is 300 grams per square meter with a smooth to slightly grainy texture, like hot press or cold press. A lot of the time you'll see me work with 100% cotton papers, but with watercolor pencils you can even use cheaper types like cellulose papers or even hybrid papers. For brushes, I often use a flat brush if I need to pre-wet the paper or activate a large area, a few small round and pointed ones for details, and a regular round brush for backgrounds. And today I will only use one small round and pointed brush, that is it. One water jar is usually enough, and paper towels are essential. For my background technique, I'll even need more of them today. A pencil sharpener is also handy, and optional but useful supplies include masking tape, a heat gun, and a plain graphite pencil for sketching. For this project, I'm using masking fluid to keep the butterflies white, along with a plastic panel that I can move around to help the colors flow on the paper. I'll also need sanding paper and a spray bottle. And that might seem like a lot because I'm just telling you everything that I'll use for watercolor pencils, but you'll notice that these are the watercolor supplies you would need if you do watercolor already, and they're pretty inexpensive. And it's the same for the other stuff like a spray bottle or sanding paper, things that you'll usually find around the house. The best part about watercolor pencils though is that they generally require little water. It's not going to be the case today with the background I'm going to show you next, but I have a watercolor pencil before from my couch, so it's a very easy and convenient medium to use and even carry around. Something I wish that I knew when I started is that it's possible to paint smooth washes of paint with watercolor pencils. The thing is that when we get started, usually we'll do it with a coloring technique, and when you activate that, you'll notice streaks. It's very common. It even happens with the best pencils, and that can be super frustrating, and I know that it's a pet peeve for many of us in the community. That's why I started using the swatch technique after that to avoid that problem, but I quickly got bored with the traditional watercolor looks of it, even though it works like a charm and it's easy to do. But then I found a trick that's very unique to watercolor pencils and that changes everything. Grading the pigment with sanding paper and activating it with a flat brush or a spray bottle. This creates the smoothest washes, making your painting look magical at the same time. A quick disclaimer about that is that even though most watercolor pencils are non-toxic, with all the brands, all the colors that exist out there nowadays, it's better to check for potential toxicity with some of the colors, and make sure that you clean your workspace well and ventilate it as well, just to be safe. This powdered pigment technique is a game changer for today's painting. Watch how I build up layers effortlessly, blending blues and pinks together straight on the paper. The pigments melt into each other beautifully with hints of purple in places. And I'll show you how I activate a background like this in a minute, but first I'd like to share one more thing that I wish I knew before I started. Watercolor pencils alone are very powerful, but when I discovered water-soluble graphite pencils and how they look in combination to watercolor pencils, that really transformed my art, and if you've been following the channel, you know it because I use them a lot. These pencils create rich, deep shadows that are far more natural than using black. I use them all the time, whether in full graphite paintings or even as a way to enhance traditional watercolors. And I love that they act just like regular watercolor pencils. Same techniques, same everything, no surprises. I'm using indigo for depth, but it's not dramatic enough. And layering a 6B water-soluble graphite pencil over it fixes that. It adds a lot more contrast, making the butterflies glow even more against the darker background once we remove the masking fluid. A little trick is to use a paper towel with intention, especially when there are very dark colors to blend. We don't just use it to smear pigment all over, but also blend seamlessly between dark and light areas without over smudging. And I do this by switching to a clean side of the paper towel whenever I reach a lighter area. This way, I manage to avoid transferring the strongest colors everywhere else with a dirty towel, and I keep the bright areas bright. For a creative background like this, however, it's not really a big deal because the closer and the more I spray in one area, the better of a highlight I easily get back. The further I spray, the more even the activation of the paint appears and the more intact the colors are. They stay where you added them. So this is really the kind of technique where you can kind of let go and enjoy the process. Now that this is dry, watch how beautifully those butterflies contrast against the main colors. That was the main goal with this background. We also have a mix of both watercolor and colored pencil effects, since I did not activate everything, and I love that about watercolor pencils. So now I think you see how easy it is to get smooth washes of paint with watercolor pencils and how to never have to deal with the streaks again. For detailed subjects like the butterflies in my painting, we're going to need to color directly on paper this time because we need more detail, more precision, unlike the background I demoed before. That is when blending can feel tricky, especially for beginners. Let me know in the comments if that feels familiar. A common mistake is over-mixing, which turns the colors into one muddy mess and loses all the details like the ones I'm adding right now. I struggled with this so much in the beginning that I abandoned watercolor pencils for 2 years. And to solve this problem, I had to teach myself just like what I'm doing here on this channel. And also on my Patreon, where you can find this tutorial with my voiceover, as well as many other watercolor pencil tutorials. I'll link that in the description below. I'm also working on my first in-depth watercolor pencil course, and I don't think anything like this exists yet. So if you want to know when it comes out, it will be in a couple of weeks. Make sure to stay tuned here, and if you prefer to be reminded by email, you can also join my newsletter from the description below. Back to blending. Take these butterflies. We already know we'll need to preserve the details I've just added, and also preserve most of the whites during the blending process. The key is to wet the lightest areas first, and I move towards the darker ones, not the other way around. This keeps my highlights crisp, and it keeps my main color exactly where I intended it to be during the coloring phase. It seems simple because it's just one color, but the real problems come when you start adding darker colors, like I'm doing now with indigo and my 6B water-soluble graphite pencil. The thing is, it's not enough to start adding water to the light parts first and move towards the dark ones. You also want to make sure that your paintbrush stays clean and that there's little water involved. It should just be damp. And that's why I keep rinsing my brush with clear water whenever I switch areas. And I make sure to get rid of most of the water by dabbing it on a paper towel. I work with that paper towel in hand at all times, and I repeat again and again. Rinse the brush, get rid of the excess water, activate, and so on. After over 2 years now of exploring watercolor pencils, I've realized that there really are no limits. You can paint anything in a lot of different styles. I've tried portraits, landscapes, still life, you name it. And I've painted things that are smooth to things that are very rich in texture and details. For example here, I leverage a very sharp lead to add tiny details like the antennas, something that's so easy to do with watercolor pencils. I also often use a white pencil for highlights, but since I preserved my whites very well in this painting, I'm not going to need it today. There are many more things we can do, and I won't be able to show all of it in this video because I have in previous ones, but I want to share this cool trick. I'm adding another layer of depth by smearing sanded pigment with a paper towel, creating the illusion of shadows wrapping around some butterflies as a final touch to the background. It's an effortless way to enhance contrast while keeping that dreamy, mysterious atmosphere. And we're not taking any risks because we don't even have to activate it. That's why I'm leaving it as it is and ending up with beautiful pencil texture as well as gorgeous watercolor effects from what I did before when I activated the background. There's a little bonus here that I want to share with you. I'm a bookworm, I love to read, and QFun reached out to me to have me try their laminator. I said yes immediately because that was very interesting for me to create bookmarks, and what's better than watercolor pencils to do that. The QFun laminator I'm using here is an A3 multi-functional one that comes with a paper cutter, a hole puncher, and a rounded corner punch. They're all really handy for customizing your art. You will also find different sizes of laminating sheets. You can even buy refills on Amazon when you need more. And what's cool is that since this laminator can handle up to 300 grams per square meter papers, it's great for watercolor and watercolor pencil art, since that's what we often use. So what I did was simply cut my art into 5 bookmark sized pieces, insert them into the laminating sheet, and run them through the machine after turning it on to the correct temperature. Very fast and easy to do. And in under 30 seconds, look what I'm getting, laminated watercolor pencil art. Now that's gonna be perfect for me, but also for gifting to loved ones. So if you like the idea, I'll make sure and link this laminator in the description of the video. And thank you QFun for sending it out to me. So I hope this video helped you avoid the mistakes that I made when I was beginning, that it inspires you to explore this incredible medium. I can suggest this entire playlist I've made with watercolor pencils if you want to learn more about my techniques. Thank you so much for watching and see you next time.